welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I feel like we've done this before.
So
Crazy.
what I wanted to talk about was we just finished shooting Haley and Jake's wedding this past Saturday.
We did.
I feel kind of bad because I'm like over podcasting, over media sizing their wedding.
Yeah.
Like I can't stop talking about it because
You really are all over social media
it's
about
such
Haley
a good
and Jake's
wedding. It's such a good wedding.
It really was an absolutely incredible day.
Like
Everything was awesome.
I like despite
the
rain,
weather, everything else was a 10 out of 10. I'd even venture to say an 11 out of 10.
I would agree with that.
At least an 11 out of 10.
At least an 11 out of 10.
Yeah.
So like I've known them for about a year now, just between the consultation and interacting with them on social media, here and there. You met them on the day of.
Mm-hmm.
How quickly, when you first met the bride, because the bride was at the venue first, Haley was there, and then Jake and his groom came a little later.
Yep. Came with the monsoon.
They brought the monsoon with
of
them.
Rain.
How quickly did you get a first impression of how amazing they were going to be?
Instantly.
Instantly?
Instantly. When I walked in, I was already, I turned left on the road of the venue. And that's really when it started to come down, the rain.
Mm-hmm.
I had a beautiful drive, and then it was as soon, like pretty much 30 seconds away from the venue was really when it started to pour. So I'm already, you always hope for beautiful weather for a wedding, period. But especially when you're shooting it, because when you're shooting it, you have to think, okay, if it does rain, what precautions are we going to take to make sure that this wedding film isn't any less quality than a wedding film that would be outside, because they can't predict the weather. They can't, obviously, if they predicted the weather, who would predict, to do a wedding outside if they knew there was rain coming? You know what I mean? So that was kind of where my head was at, like making sure that we were able to maintain the quality of video that, comes with the name Christian Gallic Films for a rainy day as opposed to, a beautiful day otherwise. So that's where my kind of mind was at. And that's where, minutes before I met the bride, Haley. And so I'm kind of just, thinking all these things, like, okay, how are we going to do this? Like, a little bit nervous because, with weddings, this may seem obvious, but you don't really get multiple takes.
No.
You get one first kiss. You get one, set of vows. You know what I mean? You can't be like, oh, sorry, I was a little bit out of focus. Can you do that again? Like, you're basically like, you get one shot for 95% of the stuff that happens during that day. So I'm trying to figure that out in my head. And then I go and meet Haley, and it was like instantly almost like I was like at ease. Because I met her, she was just so like, hey, how are you? Like, how's your day going? Like, that kind of stuff. It wasn't even like some brides you meet and it's just, hi, my name's so-and-so. I'm going to finish getting ready and like, this is my day. Mm-hmm. And with Haley, it was very much, and Haley and Jake both, they were both the same way. When I met Jake, it was very like, hey, how are you? Like, how was your drive here? Like, that kind of stuff. They were both so sweet. And you could tell very much off the bat that set the tone for the day. It didn't matter if there was a tornado coming. A stage 5 hurricane. I don't even know if you call them stages and hurricanes. I don't know what they're called. But pretty intense hurricanes could have came through. But you could just tell, like, and I think that this is a nice foreshadowing for, hopefully, fingers crossed, how their marriage is going to go, in the sense that, like, when you first meet this couple, you can tell off the bat how the tone is going to be, not only for the rest of our day, because I can't tell you how easy they made our lives throughout the entire day, but it's just kind of that couple, when you meet them, you feel like you're comfortable instantly. And I know that, we are not the first people to think that meeting Haley and Jake. They just have that kind of personality where they're just genuine people. And when you meet genuine people, not even related with weddings, not even related with any client work or anything like that, you just want to do good by them. Mm-hmm. Because if you have a genuine person that thinks you are a good person and thinks that you did good work, you're like, all right, well, they're legit genuine, so I must be okay in their book. But, like, it just made me want to do better work. Mm-hmm. It motivated us to say, okay, I don't care what comes our way today weather-wise, they're a great couple, and we want to make sure that they get the best product possible.
And that's,
if that makes sense. I think I totally rambled from like what you originally asked.
It completely makes sense because the tone that Haley set when you first met her set kind of the tone of the day, like you said.
Right.
And that kind of gave us just that extra bit of motivation, just like give it our all, pull out all the stops, and make the best possible wedding film. And it's a team effort. It's not just like, oh, well, you get the close-up shots and I'll get the wide gimbal shots, and we'll do this and it'll be good. That's just one component.
Right. That's definitely part of it.
That
but
is
there's
half.
So much more.
The other half is who's on camera. And that's the bride and groom.
Right.
And Haley and Jake just demonstrated an incredible amount of emotion and love towards each other and appreciation for everything going on around them for their entire wedding day.
Yeah.
It all translated on video. Like, that's why their wedding film's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
Like,
it wasn't us.
I mean,
we were just like a small percent of that.
I think we killed it, but it's mainly
outside
them.
of that, I think that we were. It was kind of one of those things. You meet Haley, you meet Jake, and it's very much like you could tell they were calm and they were relaxed, and I think that translated to everyone that was around them. Obviously, people are worried about the rain. People are worried about the storms rolling in. People are worried, are the guests going to get wet? Are the seats going to be dry for guests to sit down on? What happens if this happens? Yada, yada, yada. But you could tell, like, when you had a conversation with them or you asked them to do something, they were calm. And just by being around them and them being so calm and level-headed, if that were me, if I were a bride and it started to so much as drizzle, if there's one cloud in the sky on the day again, I'm going to go crazy because I just want it to be so perfect. But just being around them and seeing how calm they were was easily translated onto me and onto you, and just saying, if they're relaxed and this is their wedding day, what are we worried about? You know what I mean? Like, we're just here to make a wedding film. And I don't want to say we're just here to make a wedding film as if that's like an easy task, because there's so much that goes into that. But this is their big day. So they were relaxed, and then that translated into us being relaxed. So that was cool.
Absolutely. And and this is kind of less away from the wedding film aspect and more so on just like a general lifestyle. Kind of a little mad at Jake and Haley for setting the bar so high.
Oh, yeah.
Because seriously, like, think about this. If I don't find a girl that looks at me the way Haley looks at Jake,
yeah, you're not wrong.
Like,
if I walk down the aisle and my groom's not crying, I'm turning around and doing it again. Sorry to my future husband out there that might be listening to this. I'm just kidding, kind of.
It's like they just, oh my gosh, they set the bar
and like, I know
high.
that we will, I'm sure we've already said it, and I'm sure we will continue to say it throughout the rest of this podcast, and I'm guaranteeing you it'll be in post when we post their wedding film, and it'll be, talked about more and more and more well after this podcast. But when you have a couple that is so genuinely in love with each other, it makes life so much easier, in the sense that for us, when we go to weddings, we say, okay, we want to shoot B-roll. That way we can have that, over top of the vows and over top of just, throughout the wedding. And normally, we'll go up and say, okay, we want you to do this action, or kiss her on the cheek, or, spin her around, do a twirl, something along those lines.
Right.
We did that for them. Don't get me wrong. But a lot of the stuff that we captured was just them being lovey-dovey on their own.
It was them.
It was really them, which made us excited, because we were like, oh, I didn't even think about doing something like that, but guaranteed I'm putting that in my back pocket for the next time I shoot a wedding. And they were giving us ideas, which then was getting us more excited, because us being, like the film nerds, were like, oh, we just want to make everything as cinematic and as great looking as possible. So when they were already making our footage look great, and we didn't even have to tell them to do that, it was unreal, like an unreal experience that I'm so grateful to have gotten to, like, experience, because it was just something that not that I never thought it was possible, but it's just not something you think of. You go in as, a first shooter or a second shooter for a wedding, and you say, okay, I'm here to do a job. But you also think back and you say, I'm here to do a job, but think about how awesome this job is, in the sense that I am here, taking pictures or taking video of quite literally one of the best days of this couple's lives. And you get to take a huge part in that. And it's just so cool to be able to get great shots, period. But also to get it without even instructing them to do certain things. It's just such a cool kind of, it was like we were almost trying to outdo ourselves the entire day. Like we were trying to be like, okay, well that was great. But like, what do we do next? Like, how can we beat that? Like, which is crazy. And we were able to get some awesome footage out of it.
So I guess kind of spinning off a little bit from Jake and Haley and more on the second shooting side. Yeah. And using Jake and Haley's wedding as the example.
Right.
You and I have been shooting for 3 years now.
Yeah, isn't that
This
crazy?
is the third year we've been shooting.
I thought about that the other day. I was like, holy crap. I've been doing this for so long.
It's wild.
Yeah. But to think about like where you and I started when I first shot my first wedding, which we won't get into details, but it was I'm going to be brutal. Honest, it was definitely not the best day for a multitude of reasons, but
amazing couple. Yes. Not ideal circumstances.
Exactly.
But
it was circumstances weren't phenomenal. But moving on, looking back at that, and I remember first ever wedding. I see this like cool that we were shooting at. I don't necessarily know. It wasn't a museum or something like that, but I forget what. But anyways, there was a lot of like cool structures and sculptures and things on the premises. And I remember laying on the ground, and I must have shot for 3 solid minutes trying to get a sun flare through this like stained glass portion, and I thought that was the coolest shot I would ever shoot for a wedding. And I was like, the couple isn't even in this, I don't even know if this is 100% in focus, but I was like, that's just so cool. Like, it can only go up from there. And thinking about that moment and how excited I was before I even really got to, that was before the ceremony, the reception, anything like that. We were just getting B-roll outside to like establish the location of where like the wedding was going to be. And me being so excited and saying, I thought that shot was cool, but wait till the rest of the day. And even thinking now, like, wait for the next wedding, wait for the next cool opportunity where you're going to be at a different venue with even cooler, things to shoot for B-roll and that kind of stuff. Every wedding is different and every couple is different, but just being able to see, looking at that, how far, and you and I as a team have been able to come since 3 years ago.
That is like...
It literally seems so long ago. Like, I feel like I was an infant when I shot that wedding.
An infant. Well, that was right after I graduated college, and you were still going into your senior year, right?
My junior year, I think.
No.
When did you graduate? What year did you graduate?
2016.
Oh, okay. Then, I was going into my senior year.
Okay. Yeah, so 2016 we shot, 2017, now we're in 2018.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that makes sense.
Which is also crazy, but that's a different story.
Yeah, that's a whole different podcast.
That's college grad syndrome. But seeing how we've developed in like the system of flows, and me working with other second shooters who aren't you, don't have. You
missed it, but I just did a hair flip for those of you listening. I felt like that was important to note. Anyway, continue.
It's very different each shooter that I work with, and I make sure that I know which shooter I work with and plan accordingly. At this point, with you, we don't talk much.
No, we really
don't. Other than, do you have a close up or a wide shot? Oh, okay. Like I won't even like say like, oh, I'll do this or I'll just ask what you have and I'll do the opposite, and we know. Yeah,
literally. That's pretty much where we're at this point. Like, and Christian and I have shot, a decent amount of weddings together, but it's outside of that. Just being able to communicate, I think, is so important. I mean, communication is important just in life in general, but especially when you're doing weddings, just understanding that, the more communication you have, the better the outcome. So if I were to walk into a wedding and just, stand there with my tripod, with my camera, and just shoot whatever I wanted to shoot, and you going off of that, just, like, not really knowing what I'm shooting and feeling weird asking me, like, what's your shot look like? Because a lot of times, I've been in situations where, people ask me or are afraid to ask me, what does your shot look like? Because it almost can come off as you just, like, looking over someone's shoulder and being like, oh, well, are you sure you want to frame it like that? Are you sure you don't want to bump up your ISO? Like the little things like that. But just being able to sit down and be like, okay, we've done enough of these where we pretty much have a good workflow. And if there's a question, I feel comfortable coming to you. If there's ever a problem, you know, we have open lines of communication, which I think is so important, especially because, like I said, every wedding is so different that, like, you can have the best game plan going into a wedding and one thing could happen and you are at ground zero. You are having to be able to be flexible and work on your feet and just be able to modify your game plan with whatever is, you know, happening around you, and being able to be, like I said, just be flexible with everything is so important.
That's exactly it. When a pop-up monsoon comes up, you need to be flexible.
You got to go out the day before and buy certain bags to cover your camera so that they don't get...
Oh, that was day of. I woke up...
Even better.
I woke up early, went to Dan's Camera City, and I just go right to the rain covers, get what I need. The guy, the store clerk comes up. He's like, oh, can I help you with anything? I was like, yeah. I have a wedding. I have this camera, this camera,
you
this
see that
camera.
Cloud outside? That's going to mess up my whole day. I need you to help me out.
He literally was like, it seems like you know what you need. I go, yep.
Yeah, you're right.
I very much appreciate your help, sir.
Yeah. That's so funny.
And then I impulse bought a tripod from him.
Yeah, besides the point.
Because you can never have enough tripods.
Right.
But going back to communication with you, and especially with you, because at this point right now, when it comes to the edits of these wedding films, I do, for every 3 weddings I shoot, I'll edit 2, you edit 1. Just because of our flexibility and workflow. Right. This wedding in particular, I edited the trailer that I released on Monday.
Which is great. You should go check it out.
You should.
10 out of 10 would recommend.
Because of Haley and Jake. There were some good shots in it, too.
Yeah.
But mainly Haley
Shots
and Jake.
aside, they're just incredible people.
And then you're doing the feature film.
Yes, which I'm so excited about.
Knowing that before the actual wedding day, it came down to parts of, like, you kind of had this visual map in your mind when we were shooting. And of course, like, yes, we have the center aisle shot and the left and the right for the ceremony.
That's
like,
pretty consistent across the board with weddings.
There are default shots. Right. But then there are other things that you see and you know that, like, you want to use, but I don't, like, think of it right away. Because you have, like, this, you know, specific vision or this shot to connect this theme or this or that. Right. And it's as simple as, Christian, can you go get this angle with the gimbal? Yeah. And I wouldn't even think of it. I'd be like, okay, sure.
I felt so bad at certain points, too, because, you know, we had a conversation, and, you know, it's pretty, even though, and taking a step back before I mention this, when I go and I work weddings, I am primarily a second shooter, and you are primarily the first shooter. But those titles, when we get there, pretty much, I know a lot of times people think, oh, first shooter means you're the lead shooter, and second shooter kind of sounds like an assistant. But when you get to a wedding, it's pretty much you're doing the same amount of work. And I think that that's a common misconception, is that, like, oh, well, you're only a second shooter. So not that anyone said that to me, because I correct them right then and there.
I was going to say, that'd be a problem.
But I think it's a lot of times, like, you are just, like, as a second shooter, I'm just perceived more so as an assistant.
Sure.
And I kind of even feel like I have that mentality sometimes, because I felt bad every now and then being like, hey, can you go get a shot, like, with the gimbal, like, over there so I can use it with this? And it was never a problem. And I don't want you to
feel bad for
right. And
like
and I explained it, and I didn't even have to explain it, but, like, I would say, like, oh, like, I want to use this shot with that on the other side and use this in the wedding or in the edit and that kind of stuff. And I think a lot of times it was just like, I don't know, like, it was cool just being able to know that, like, with you it wouldn't be a big deal. Like, had I been with anyone else as a first shooter, it's just that camaraderie that I think is important in knowing that, like, not only, you know, with our friendship outside of shooting weddings and things like that, but also with the fact that we have shot and edited and done, you know, weddings together for 3 years now. I'm still not going to be over that. 3 years. You know, the fact that, you know, I wouldn't just send you over to get a shot with your gimbal had I not had a vision behind it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, if it was anyone else, they'd be like, all right, like, where are you going with that? Because if it's a good enough shot, like, I would have already gotten it to begin with. But, like, being able to have that level of communication where there's really no questioning. There's no, like, oh, well, why would you do that? Or what is your... It's because, like I said earlier, when it's weddings, you pretty much have, like, maybe a 5-minute window. Not 5 minutes. 5-second window of, like, something happening that, like, you have to go get it and you have to get it quick. There's no time for... oh, well, why would you want to do that? And then by the time I'm finished explaining my thought process, it's not even an option to shoot anymore. So being able to have that level of confidence in the person that you're shooting with is super important. And I think that that's, you know, where we're at. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
You know, I have said that this past weekend with Haley and Jake, that wedding was my favorite wedding, mainly because of them. And for the 800th time, I'm not going to explain why. But, you know, having this wedding under your belt, what are your plans to try to make your future weddings that you go and shoot as exciting as this last one? To try and, like, get to that level. Not that, like, the footage is really going to be, like, any crazy different or anything like that. But I think more so... for us, we were super motivated because of the couple. How do you try and get to that level again if your couple that you might be shooting isn't as, you know, lovey-dovey and, like, great on camera, if that makes sense? Sure.
So there's definitely kind of two answers to this. For future bookings, for future brides and grooms that I'm going to shoot, you know, in the consultation, whether it's a FaceTime or we grab coffee or grab drinks or whatever the case is, like, I'm not just asking about, oh, what time's your ceremony? What time is this? What are you doing for this?
Yeah.
And it's not just them asking, like, what time do you start?
Yeah.
I talk with them and, like, I get to know them.
Right.
My favorite couples that, like, weddings I've shot, Jake and Haley included, obviously, our conversations, our consultations, at least an hour long.
Yeah.
How much wedding talk was there? Maybe 15 minutes max.
Yeah.
And the rest of the time is just getting to know them and seeing, like, how genuine of people they are. Like, and there's a couple whose wedding I shot a few months ago, who, like, they live, like, really close to me. And now we're friends.
Yeah.
And, like,
which is so cool.
And they're we joked because typically I will talk to the bride a little more than the groom.
Right.
Just because the bride is typically more interested in the wedding, in talking about the wedding than the groom. Well, this call, the groom was just like, so what are your hobbies? And I was like, oh, I mean, obviously I like filmmaking and photography.
Yeah.
You know, I like drumming, woodworking. Oh, I play guitar. You like woodworking? I love woodworking. And, like, the bride joked. She's like, I feel like you two are just like...
I'll just see you guys in a little, like...
Yeah.
I'll
do you
check
guys
out
need a
real
moment?
quick.
You guys need a play date?
Yeah. That's so funny.
And it's just, she was wonderful, too. And, like, we've gotten dinner since. And,
right.
And
which is so cool.
It's those couples that, like, I instantly know.
Yeah.
Their wedding is, like, one, I know I'm booked. Because if we have that connection, like...
You obviously want to have a relationship. Like, if you're looking to, you know, invest in a vendor for your wedding, which I don't really know if we're considered vendors or not.
Oh, yeah, we're vendors.
It just sounds weird.
It does. It sounds...
it sounds like...
kind of like systematic.
Yeah.
Like,
but anyway.
Like a component to a wedding, which is technically true. But
Right. Yeah, like, you want to be able to know going into it that it's not just someone who's going to show up, do the work, and leave.
Correct.
Like, you want someone that you can tell is going to be emotionally invested into making something that's so important to you super important to them as well.
And this is a huge point that people have asked me about, and they say, Christian, are you going to start, like, a studio and get, like, a crew and shoot multiple weddings a day? And I say, absolutely not.
Right.
One, my studio name is Christian Golic Films.
Right.
It's my name. you're going to get me. Unless there's a very,
unforeseen circumstances.
Unforeseen circumstance, which obviously we
have recently
encountered, which the bride and groom have been amazing, and that's when you first
also
shot.
An amazing wedding.
Which I'm
another amazing couple.
I'm finishing up the edit now.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
I
can't wait to see it.
It's really good.
But that day was super stressful because Christian wasn't there. And that was just a lot because that was the first wedding, really. You weren't, other than your sister's wedding, in which you were around. You were there. So if we ever had any problems, you were there. But I was using all of your equipment. Mm-hmm. I wasn't with you. And it was such an, I don't want to say out-of-body experience because that sounds a little bit dramatic. But it almost really was like an out-of-body experience. Because I was there and I was really just trying to do the best. And I was running 1,000,000 miles a minute that I was really just like, I feel like I got good footage and that kind of stuff, but I sat down at the end of the day and was like, it was a blur. Like the entire day was a blur, and it was a lot of fun, but it was a stressful day, but it was that was another rainy wedding too. And now I'm convinced that every wedding I go to this year is going to have some sort of rain.
But going back to how do I basically book the ideal client,
right,
is I invest my whole self, both professionally and emotionally, during the consultation. If I don't get that reinvestment back, if they don't, meet me halfway with their energy and enthusiasm, it just might not be a good fit. And I know other wedding vendors might be like,
what do you mean?
You turn brides down, you turn money down. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Because look,
you have to think of the full picture at that point. Because if it's not even their wedding day and they're not 100% I'm Team Christian Gollick Films, and I think that you're going to do the best job at it, and that might not even be the case. I'm sure that there are some couples that think you are the best that
right
in the area and for what other circumstances. But sometimes you're right. Like if there's not that sort of connection, I feel like there's almost not a lack of trust, but kind of a lack of trust in the sense that, if you're not able, because sometimes the things that, you ask on a wedding day is a little bit out there. And sometimes if the couple doesn't have that relationship with you to understand, you're only doing that and asking that question or whatever you might be requesting of them to make sure that their film is the best of the best. If you don't have that relationship with them, it's going to be a rough day and it's not going to be as great as it could be.
That's it. This sounds kind of weird.
Like bringing fireworks to a wedding. If you don't have that relationship with the client, they could say, well, what do you mean you want to bring fireworks to my wedding?
Right. I don't really care if they are, I guess, hesitant or don't fully understand my technical process of how I shoot. Or I hope they see my work before they contact me.
Yeah.
I'm really not worried about that because even under kind of rough circumstances, less than ideal settings, I'm still going to be able to get good, technically proper shots and make a technically good wedding film.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about that. If they don't fully click with me as a person, not as a business, as a person, that's when it's like, you know what?
Maybe it's not the right fit.
Right. And, luckily, it's only happened 1 or 2 times where I've had a consultation and it was just not right. We parted ways, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I know that I walked away from that booking or that money or whatever the case is. I don't really care.
Yeah. And ultimately, that frees you up to possibly be able to shoot for another couple that would be more grateful for your expertise and for a relationship with a couple that you might not have been able to have had you booked a couple that you weren't 100% excited. I don't want to say excited because I'm sure you're excited for every wedding, but,
of course.
100% confident in how that day might have gone.
And even if I don't, I will take that weekend and reinvest it into editing, spending a little bit more time on an edit for another wedding or whatever the case is. My time is not going to be wasted.
Yeah.
So I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
And that's what makes me happy to be at those weddings.
Yeah.
I never want to go into a wedding for a couple that I booked and be like, let's just shoot it.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have been in that scenario before, especially with other companies, as me being hired out to shoot other people's weddings, where similar to you, like I just literally have their names.
Right.
And that's it.
You just show up and do what you got to do.
Unfortunately, I mean, I'd say they're all appreciative, but maybe less than half of them are genuinely appreciative.
Right.
And that is something that you get when you book a studio that shoots multiple weddings a day.
Right.
And they just send shooters out. That there's no rapport, there's no relationship with the shooters and the bride and groom. Yeah. There's no relationship prior to the wedding day, and unless you have a really great bride and groom that just are friends with everyone, and they can make that relationship
right, like right then and there,
which has happened occasionally, and that's always great when it does.
But it's not guaranteed.
That's why I don't want to do a studio.
No, that totally makes sense.
Absolutely not.
I get it.
You know, would I make more money? Sure.
But that's not where you're in for it at the end of the day.
To make, just cold money.
Right.
If that
you want to make some toasty money. You want to warm it up in the microwave before you make that money.
I don't know. I think we just invented an expression.
I think you just invented an expression.
I like the toasty part. I like that contribution.
I just was here for the fun of it. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the way the rest of 2018 is looking, and 2019 so far. It's just absolutely looking phenomenal.
Yeah, and I'm excited.
I'm cutting out a lot of the other weddings that I'm shooting for other studios. I don't have one wedding booked for 2019 for another studio.
Whoa!
All the weddings that I'm shooting in 2019 so far are for me.
That's amazing. How many weddings are you shooting next year?
Right now I have 5.
That's amazing.
5 on the books.
Yeah.
Hopefully 6. I just got off a call yesterday with a really, really fun couple.
Really exciting. That's awesome.
And again, our call was literally 15 minutes. We tried FaceTiming. The internet was really crappy, and so we ended up hanging up and just talking on the phone. So really limited interaction.
Right.
And I'm always a guy for FaceTime.
Of course.
Because that's I'm not just some guy.
Right.
I'm not a voice on your phone.
Just some guy films.
Some guy films. Perfect.
Has a nice ring to it.
I think I'll pass. We just had a short conversation, and I feel really connected with them.
Yeah.
And they said they're going to let me know. I'm feeling very positive about it.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. I'm feeling very positive about it.
That's awesome.
Because I felt the connection.
Right.
I hope they feel the same way.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So yeah, the future is looking very bright.
Amazing.
And
gotta love it.
As long as they're all great couples, 5, 10, 15, 20, whatever the number is, I don't care.
Yeah.
As long as they're genuinely in love with each other, and as a bonus they appreciate what I do, then that's it.
That's all you need.
That's all I need.
Yeah.
And you'll be hopefully right there by my side shooting.
Hopefully I'll be there. If I can be, I'll be there. So.
I've had a lot of people booking the middle package and the upper package for 2 shooters. I have about a handful of single shooter packages for this year, which I just shoot by myself.
Right.
But all my future bookings have been 2 shooters at least. So I'm really happy about that, because that just having a second shooter dramatically increases the wedding film.
Game changer for sure.
Dramatically.
Absolutely. It's a completely different film at that point.
Especially second shooters like yourself.
You're not wrong. I'm just kidding.
I know I'm not wrong. But thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
Of course.
I really appreciate it.
Sorry for rambling a lot.
No, it's okay.
I
ramble all the time.
A lot.
It's okay.
But yeah, it was a good time.
And until the next wedding, which is coming up in less than a month.
Oh my gosh. That's a double header.
That's going to be an epic weekend. I'm pumped.
It's going to be a crazy weekend.
All right.
I'm going to start drinking a lot of caffeine now. Taking a lot of naps and drinking a lot of caffeine to prepare for this wedding.
That's right.
It'll be a good time. It'll be fun.
All right. Well, I'll see you then.
I'll see you then.